Okay, welcome. We're going to do a slideshow today about self-esteem. We'll talk a little bit in this slideshow about self-talk and some strategies uh, and create habits for a happier you. So that's the goal for this slideshow. So when you think about habits, we typically think about bad habits, but what we want to also do is create good habits for ourselves. So this is a key element to this strategy. So, in order to create good habits, we have to be aware. We have to have awareness. Um, you have to be aware of what your habits are and create a habit around awareness. So, a lot of times you hear people talk about mindfulness, and mindfulness is really just the element of paying attention to what's happening in the moment. Very often, as humans, we're sort of ahead of ourselves and behind ourselves, but it's difficult to be in the moment and to be feeling those things. So, you can do small things to practice. If you're standing outside and it's cold, feel the cold. If you're standing outside and it's hot, feel the heat on your skin. Uh, what does it feel like? What does it make you think of? What does it make you feel emotionally, physically? Spend a little bit of time thinking about those things. If you're standing, feel your toes. Try to move all 10 of your toes and feel them in your shoes. These are small things that you can do each day to build this habit around awareness. And once you have a habit around awareness, then you can have some choices. And based on those choices, you can kind of change how you're approaching things. So, awareness is the state of consciousness in which you are alert, awake, and consciously aware of your thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. So, we want to start with sort of the physicality because that's the easiest and most tangible thing for us to address. But we want to eventually transcend that and get to the idea of what are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are the words that are coming to you and the actions that you may take? And basically, your self esteem is a reflection of what you think and how you feel about yourself. So it's necessary to be aware of these thoughts and feelings. Again, we're going to start from a more tangible place in terms of things you can touch and really feel with your five senses. And then we can move on to those uh, more transcendent feelings, those ethereal ones that you can't really maybe touch. Okay, so we're creating this habit. What you notice about your habitual self-talk is that it's mostly judgmental about what you say and do, or critical regarding what you should have said or what you didn't do. And then you're on the way to upgrading the software of your mind, your thoughts, and ultimately your experience. So the idea is that as humans, we sort of naturally are critical. We talked about this in a previous video. So what we want to do is become aware of that and then be able to shift that. Now, in doing so, what you don't want to do is beat yourself up about your negative self talk because that's, again, negative. So you kind of let things happen and then positive self talk. So it's not that you want to shut yourself down or not experience those feelings, but I think what you're looking for is a balance of positive, balancing out that negative with some positive. Okay, so choice. Choice is the act of making a decision to consciously, choose the thoughts that support your positive self-esteem and self-confidence. You have to be aware of your thoughts and feelings and those things that detract from and support your positive self-esteem. With this awareness, you're going to notice that you're thinking thoughts that undermine your self-esteem, as well as be aware of thoughts that boost your self-esteem. So again, celebrate things, praise yourself, have compassion for yourself. We spoke a little bit about this in a one-on-one where it can be easier to have empathy and compassion for someone else than it can be to have it for yourself. It's about forgiving yourself. It's about noticing the good things about yourself and telling yourself these things. Okay, so when you notice having awareness of negative self-talk, strengthen the idea that you are confident by telling yourself you're confident. So this is again a choice. So now you're making a change. Where the rubber meets the road is when you put into practice the choices you've made, transforming your thoughts and feelings about yourself so you embody positive self-esteem and confidence. So creating a practice, that's what a habit is, right? It's a practice. And if we look at all the major religions in the world, they all revolve around some sort of practice, some sort of habit, prayer, meditation, something like that that gets you in a moment, that makes you self-aware. One of the most interesting things about yoga is that it makes you aware of your body because you're moving your body in new ways. You become aware of the muscles, you become aware of the balance. And again, this is a similar type of thing. It doesn't mean you have to ascribe to any particular religion or any religion at all. Or if you are religious, it doesn't mean you have to abandon that for something else. But I think what I'm looking at is just asking yourself or reminding yourself that what you're asking yourself to do here isn't really that strange. It's just you're asking yourself to apply it in a new way. So creating this habit. So what are you thinking about? You want to be able to see what your thoughts are trying to achieve. So even as I do this video, I'm, constantly reminding myself that I am stumbling over words, or maybe I should have said it this way or should have said it that way. This is just normal uh, inner monologue, right? That I'm talking to myself sort of as I'm speaking to you. And it's not something bad about me. It's not that I'm an overly negative person. I'm not trying to beat up on myself. I'm just trying to do the best job for you. So, what I need to do in those moments is have compassion for myself, notice that I'm trying, notice that I'm putting myself out there, and encourage myself in that way rather than second guess myself or beat up on myself. So, let's use an example. You forgot to attend a meeting. You might realize that you're thinking thoughts like, I didn't think it was important. I really didn't need to be there. These sound like excuses, right? How can I be expected to attend meetings when so many other things I'm expected to do? They should have reminded me. I can't be expected to remember everything. I didn't know about it. They miss meetings all the time. Why is it suddenly such a big deal when I miss a meeting? The idea of these sentences, and again, they're kind of excuses, right? Is your brain is trying to fix something. It's coming up with explanations as to why it's not your fault. But you're also trying to create a story that will justify how you didn't really do anything wrong. This is natural. This is what a normal human would do. You won't be able to let it go until you've come up with an explanation that's acceptable as to why you didn't do something or why you didn't handle a situation as well as you could have. The problem is that there's no resolution. You can't change the past. You're going to end up playing the event over and over again. These are the kinds of things where you can't sleep at night because you're thinking of that thing you didn't do or that thing you said you wished you hadn't said. This is what keeps us up at 2 in the morning, right? It's going to bother you and it's going to wear you out and you're going to continually replay the situation. There are things that I did 20 years ago that just pop into my mind and I think, ay, 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 why did I say that? Why did I do that? And again, I have to give myself a break. It was 20 years ago. I am where I am because of all the things that happened to me and all the choices I made. And if I'm happy where I am, then all of those things are okay. Again, it's not to excuse yourself or let yourself off the hook. It's just to allow yourself some compassion, to be compassionate for yourself, to yourself. So once you realize that you're trying to justify your behavior, the next step is acknowledgement. This is the absolute quickest way to free yourself from anxiety looping, which is what's happening here. All you have to do is acknowledge what you've done and that you could have handled it better. I missed that thing. It's unfortunate, but next time I'm going to do this thing. Move forward. Uh, One, sometimes I do get too caught up in other things and I forget about the time. That's okay. Sometimes I'm inconsiderate of others. Sometimes I'm forgetful. Sometimes I do try to do too many things at once. Sometimes I can't handle everything that's expected of me. These are all things that are sort of natural, right? So, one, you don't have to justify it to yourself. You don't have to explain it away. You don't have to tell yourself it was a bad thing to do. You don't have to swear to never do it again. This is sort of the mistake that we can get into. It's we expect this immediate change. We expect that we're never going to make a mistake again. And that's just not possible. And what you end up doing is disappointing yourself once again. So I think we don't expect perfection. We expect improvement. You don't have to be angry at yourself for your actions. Breaking the anxiety loop is very important. You'll find that the simple act of acknowledgement will free you from this anxiety and it will give you some sort of instant peace. It's amazing. But in fact, you're going to discover that you now almost completely forgot about the entire incident. Previously, you wouldn't have been able to let it go and you would have kept replaying it over and over when all you have to do is simply acknowledge it. So take a step back and think about what your thoughts are really trying to accomplish. Are you justifying your actions? Are you trying to deny that you did something? Are you making excuses for yourself? Are you trying to convince yourself that you didn't do anything wrong? Acknowledge this behavior. This is how you get past the behavior. You have to acknowledge it. You're only human and you're going to exhibit behavior you don't like in yourself or others. And there's also going to be times that you know you can do better and you didn't do better. So think about learning to ride a bike. Oh, there's a video here, but I don't know that it's going to play. Maybe it will. Let's see. No, it's not going to play, but it's okay. So it's a video of my son learning how to ride a bike is what it is. So at first you pay attention to staying balanced, keeping your eyes on the road, holding onto the handlebars, steering with the desired direction, and using your legs. All of these things have become, you're trying to focus on at once. Anytime we try to do something new, we become overly focused on the minutia, right? Once you know how to do something, once you have more practice, you stop thinking about these things, right? And all of these actions, these five or six things become one. It becomes riding a bike. It doesn't become balancing, steering, pedaling, looking, feeling, worrying. It just becomes riding a bike. And so then when you get on the bike, you know exactly what to do because what has happened is your brain has synthesized all of these actions into one thing. So I remember many, many years ago when I was trying to learn to play golf. And if you've ever tried to learn to play golf, this is what happens is they tell you five things to do at once. Keep your head down, bend your knees, move your arms, swing like this, don't look up, look at the ball. All of these things that you need to do at once. And it becomes overwhelming to try to focus on all of this. But once you master each skill individually, your brain synthesizes it into a swing, right? Into swinging the club and hitting the ball. And doesn't mean you're perfect and you do it perfectly every time. But what it means is you stop thinking about every step of it and it becomes one thing. Eventually, you're able to ride the bike and ride without thinking. You're operating automatically. The strong brain pathway has been created as the new brain software has been uploaded and seamlessly is operating in your mind. So we're trying to do the same thing with building this new habit. In the beginning, it almost seems like work, right? You have to remind yourself to do it. You have to catch yourself. You have to think about the steps. But the idea is that you're working to reprogram your thought process. So if we think about how our self-esteem is formed, your brain works in the same way, forming how you think about yourself as riding the bike or learning this new skill. As a child, your thoughts about yourself are formed from the messages you've heard and believed from important and influential people in your life. There's teachers and parents and siblings and other people who have a real influence on children. For example, if you were continually made fun of by classmates and not invited to play with them when you were a child, you probably developed low self-esteem thought pattern regarding your friends and social situations. As a result, as an adult, obsessively thinking or reflecting on these patterns may automatically surface in social gatherings where you experience anxiety, fear, nervousness based on thoughts. You might think people don't like me. I was only invited because they had to. Nobody's going to talk to me. I don't know what to say. These beliefs are what we call your dominant thought pattern. They operate on automatic. It's a habit. And uh, they're thoughts that trigger consciously or unconsciously your feelings and reactions to these circumstances. So this idea that you created this dominant thought pattern over years or decades means it's not very, very easy to change it, right? You have to really apply yourself in trying to change this dominant thought pattern to a positive one. When you become aware of what you're thinking and feeling, you can choose and practice using new thoughts and behaviors. This is again that awareness. Becoming aware of it is the first step. And awareness, there has to be honesty in awareness, right? You have to be able to be honest about it. You have to be safe. So, this idea that with practice, your new thoughts will become your dominant thoughts, replacing old patterns of thinking. New behaviors create new thought patterns, which can eventually become the dominant pathway. Look at the pleasure list worksheet. It's a tool to use when you're getting into a pattern of negative self talk. Remind yourself of the things that make you happy. How does it feel to write these things? So, if you're thinking about things that give you pleasure, things that make you happy, how does it feel to write these things down? Do you feel good about it? Do you feel guilty? Do you feel like you're being honest about these things? Use this tool to keep yourself positive. These are the roots of your life tree. They keep you grounded. So You'll have a self-esteem worksheet. We want to fill this out as well, thinking about your self-esteem. Um, in the world of work, people like to talk about positive or constructive criticism. It's not that I'm rejecting you, but what you're doing. Or they say, you're not the mistakes you make. This is true, but it doesn't change how we feel about something, right? It doesn't change how we react to being criticized. This might make the critic feel better because they don't feel like they're really being so harsh, but it doesn't make the person criticized necessarily feel better. So, are you feeling the negative or the positive? By nature, criticism is focused on something that someone regards as unwanted, an unwanted behavior, an unwanted attitude, um, an unwanted emotion. It's this negative judgment that holds the sting that the person uh, on the receiving end feels. Describe the behavior you don't want, focus on the behavior, not the person, and be specific. See how it affects you and how you feel about it. Describe the behavior you want. Okay, so the home example dealing with criticism. Oh, I'm having a problem here. The wife, the wife sees her husband throw his wet towel on the floor. Here's how she gives criticism. Why do you always throw your towel on the floor? What's wrong with you? Why do you always overreact about everything? I don't do it all the time. Anyway, you're twice as bad. What do you mean twice as bad? I never throw my towel on the floor. I'm not an inconsiderate lazy pig. Lazy pig, how about you? Here comes the argument. So the end result is an angry wife, an angry husband. And is he going to throw in the bin next time? If yes, it may be with resentment. If no, it might be out of stubbornness. None of these things are helping their relationship. So describe the behavior you don't want. Focus on the behavior, not the person. Say how it affects you and how you feel about it. Describe the behavior you do want. And again, be specific. When you throw your wet towels on the floor, I feel irritated and upset. So this is again reframing it. And then he can respond, why he did it. I know, but could you pick it up in the future? Yeah, I'll pick it up when I get back. It might sting a little bit. This still maybe doesn't feel good, and he might only pick it up later, but at least he's got the message and he didn't shut down and become defensive, right? If he continues to throw it on the floor after making this reasonable request, then there's another story that requires a different response, breaking it down according to 3 steps. When you throw your wet towel on the floor, this is the specific behavior you don't want. I feel irritated, how it affects her, and I'd like you to put your towel in the basket. So, an example of dealing with criticism. An employee is unhelpful to a customer, which causes the loss of that customer, an embarrassment for the company. And the manager might criticize. Usually, you cannot treat a customer that way. You've lost the company money and caused us embarrassment in the press. Your behavior was unacceptable, and you regard this as your first warning. Don't mess up again. Yes, sir. Fearful and or resentful employee, angry employer. Neither of this contributes to cooperative work environment. Using the 3-step method, we can ask about the behavior, say how it affects you, and ask about the behavior they do want. When you ignore a customer and don't pay attention to the problem they're having, it creates the impression that you and the company don't care about them. This frustrates me because it's hard to build a customer base. So he's going on about how it affects the manager, how he feels about it, and how it affects the company, and then tells them what he'd like them to do. I would like you to follow the training guidelines on dealing with customers. And the employee says they will. The end result is more investment from the employee, although it may still be fear driven, fear of getting in trouble, but you're still getting a different reaction. So when we think about emotional IQ, uh, we can think about some of the aspects of emotional IQ. How do we understand how good we are feeling our emotions, identifying our emotions, and being able to identify other people's emotions? Are we aware? Are we aware of ourselves? Are we aware of other people? This is kind of the first step to this. Have you ever noticed how some people who are really intelligent can still do foolish things? Like the guy having dinner with his boss who comments that he thinks the most female hockey players look like men in drag, only to discover that the boss's wife used to be a champion hockey player. Are you aware of your emotions as you feel them? Are you able to recognize and name your own and other people's emotions? This is something we do often with small children as we help them identify their emotions. Something like, Johnny, you seem really angry today, or Johnny, you seem sad. And so we're giving them the name for what they're feeling, and then we can get to the next level because now that we have a name and a category for something, it can help us understand it better. But often as adults, we forget about this. Am I angry? Am I sad? Do I feel threatened? What am I really feeling? We focus often on just sort of the behavior that's happening rather than what am I feeling, not what am I doing. Uh, able, are you able to talk about how you feel or hold back your feelings depending on the need in the situation? Are you able to respond to other people's emotions, especially strong emotions like anger, grief, or joy? Are you able to tolerate and handle your own strong emotions? Are you able to motivate yourself or console yourself when things don't work out your way? Okay, so pitfalls of poor emotional IQ. This is a screenshot of a game from when I was a child called Pitfall. Uh, so, what are the challenges of poor emotional IQ? You misunderstand situations and put your foot in it. You make people angry by not being sensitive to their feelings. Strong emotions make you uncomfortable, so you might make light of them, ignore them, or avoid them. Being out of touch with your own emotions leads to sadness, explosions of anger, or a sense of distance from others. Avoiding other people's emotions cuts you off from intimacy and results in superficial relationships. Your emotions rule you and drive your actions in a way you find hard to control. Chronic, unexpressed emotions affect your physical functioning. You have fatigue, digestion, stomach problems, heart disease, blood pressure, headaches, greater susceptibility to infections. These emotions can really impact your physical health, and we need to be aware of that also. Let's imagine a man suddenly got a jolt of emotional insight and realized that his voice tone became harsh whenever he felt frustrated and stressed. To change this, he would need a number of other emotional intelligence skills besides insight. He has to learn to deal with his frustration so it doesn't affect his tone of voice so easily. Moderate his tone of voice and control his behavior. Judge the right time and place to express his frustrations. Again, this isn't in an effort to shut your emotions down. It's just the right place and the right time, right? To express them in a way that's productive. What we don't want people to do is stifle themselves to the point where they're just pushing their emotions down because then they're getting get ready for an explosion. The skill to express his emotions, and he needs to, develop the skill to express his emotions in a constructive way using words that don't harm relationships. The openness of heart to know when to forgive someone or overlook a situation and let frustrations go. Why understanding emotion is self esteem in action. Because emotional intelligence is closely woven into your everyday dealing of life. It can be a huge contributor to our detractor from self esteem. Being capable of and effective in your relationship is self esteem in action. This is, again, we talked about self esteem coming from those around you when you're a child, and it largely does when you're grown as well. It certainly comes from within, but you know, others are helping to nurture that, and they can nurture that better with positive uh, emotional intelligence. Use the tips and activities in these pages to develop your emotional IQ, self awareness, and positive self esteem. A strong emotional IQ depends on having the right insight as well as the skills to deal with emotions. The most basic of all these skills is self awareness. Okay, so someone with good emotional intelligence has awareness, they're aware of their challenges, they're also aware of their supports. They choose to continue to try. They take control of situations and they change. They change their approach and they let go. I wish I could show you when you're lonely or in darkness the astonishing light of your own being. This is a quote that we can all be reminded of. So, in reviewing sort of what we talked about today in this session, we talked a lot about awareness, awareness of ourselves, awareness of our actions, awareness of our self-esteem, awareness of others. So creating this is a key to all of it. This idea of mindfulness and setting up a practice. This is what I'd like you to come away with this, is that this is not a one PowerPoint fixes all, right? This is about creating a practice for yourself involving a pattern. So, building a pattern of positive self talk, building a pattern of working on your emotional intelligence so that you're creating this good habit. And this good habit is going to continue to feed you. It's going to feed your soul. It's going to help nurture your self esteem. Okay, thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to our next meeting.